So thank you so much, everyone, again for joining us. We are Ama La Vida for those of you coming through Eventbrite. We are a life, health, and wellness, leadership, and career coaching company. And my name is Justice, and I'm one of the relationship strategists here on the team. And what that means is when you're ready to start your coaching journey, you schedule a half-hour conversation with someone on my team. And during that time, we ask you deeper questions to know more about you, what's going on, and what your goals are so that we can hopefully pair you up with one of the amazing coaches on our team that is going to be able to help you with that. With that being said, my calendar is first come, first serve. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link now. And anybody who does come to us and make sure that they indicate they came from a webinar, you do qualify to get your first session free. So something to consider when budgeting and everything like that. But I would love to continue a conversation further with anyone that wants to talk. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our coach, Peggy, who is going to lead us through this today. Peggy, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm curious where everybody's coming from. So feel free to use the chat box to let us know. And if this is your first time joining Ama La Vida's event, I will love to know as well. So before I officially introduce myself, I want to go over today's agenda. So number one, I want everyone to set an intention. What would you like to get out of today's webinar? So think about that. And number two, our webinar is recorded, so you can stay focused and always come back to watch the recording if you feel you missed something. And so be present. You can also take notes, and you can use the chat box to share your thoughts. And number three, we will be meeting our panelists and hear their stories today. So this webinar is a little bit different from our typical events. We will be talking to real people. They are either current or past ALV members, and they will talk about their experience and how they made their job transition. And we will have question and answer at the very end, so stick around, and you can actually start thinking about what questions you want to ask. All right, so this is where I talk about myself, and my name is Peggy Wu. I have a professional certified coach accreditation from International Coaching Federation. I do life and career coaching exclusively through Ama La Vida. I'm also a registered yoga teacher, teaching mostly corporate classes. Excuse me. And as a coach, I help my clients gain clarity and confidence in their life and career. Before becoming a coach, I was in commercial real estate lending for a long time and decided to pursue a life that I will be passionate about. I wasn't sure at the time if I wanted to get into another job or transition into self-employment. All I knew was to stop being so busy and overwhelmed all the time. And I really just wanted to teach more yoga. It was a very scary and hard decision to get out of the corporate world. People ask me how I did it. And besides having a plan, it was mostly, I want to emphasize, mostly through self-trust and being okay with the unknown. I worked on quieting the mind, plus quieting that perfectionist inside, and just took one step at a time. I'm grateful to be where I am. I say this all the time, and I feel very lucky that I get to do what I love every day. And I wish I can help others do the same. That's why I'm here. And that's also why today's event means so much to me, because I know firsthand how overwhelming career transitions can be, especially if you're doing it alone without a support network. I want to remind you that you're not alone, and many others shared your struggles. Our goal today is to encourage you and inspire you using real people experiences and what others have done to be happier in their careers, and to reiterate the message that you can do the same. We hope to get you motivated to pursue a career and life you love. So today we have 4 ALV members on our panel, and they are here to share their job transition experiences. Without further delay, let me introduce you to them. And panelists, please unmute yourself and say hello after I introduce you. So here we go. The first person we have today is Zen Griffin. Zen is currently the director of marketing at Health Jump. And it's a technology platform that makes health data accessible to improve healthcare for all. Fun fact about Zen, she was once on an episode of a ghost hunting reality show. Zen doesn't believe in ghosts, but she says she still cried. And she used to be a part of a Star Wars lightsaber choreography group where they would put on shows at conventions and events for charity. She just moved cross country from Philadelphia to Vancouver, Washington, just to experience what living on the West Coast is like. Zen, please say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Zen. All right, so next we have Alex Newman. Alex is a journalist specializing in graphics and data visualization. She's currently the senior interactives editor at 538, which is a media that covers politics, sports, and sciences via data. Fun facts. Alex likes to tell people about her 29-year-old pet tortoise named Captain Ahab. Captain Ahab is turning 30 in 2023. So if anyone has ideas for how to celebrate a tortoise's 30th birthday, Alex wants to hear them. Alex has had him for 11 years and he will live to be 75. So I heard they will be spending the rest of their lives together. She once told an ex that she couldn't commit to him because she had already committed to the tortoise. So Alex, say hi to everyone.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you, Alex. All right, and next we have Jackie King. Jackie is the Global Partnership Manager at TED, representing the luxury, fintech, tech, and food and drink sectors. Fun facts about Jackie. Jackie has been in New York since 2013 with a brief stint in Pennsylvania for law school. She's a basketball fan and a huge news junkie. She wants people to know that she waitressed in a Greek diner and upscale Italian restaurants and worked at a bakery in college. The hospitality experience, it helped her thrive in her current sales role. She loves to work journalism into her client conversations, learning the trends so she can face each industry in the most impactful way possible. Jackie, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Peggy.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, last but not least, we have Courtney Allen. Courtney is a senior employee relations partner at Google. She formerly is a labor and employment attorney. A fun fact about Courtney, she's a lover of all things related to cooking and food. Her goal is to try to make one new recipe per week. Courtney, please say hello.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Courtney. And it's interesting that 3 of our panelists are all in New York, with the exception of Zen. Zen is in Washington. So do we have New Yorkers in the audience? So if you are from New York, you have your people here. All right. Okay, so for this next part, I'm going to turn off my slide. I'm going to stop share. And I want the attention to be on our panel, as I'll be asking a few questions for our panelists to share their career transition experiences. So my first question to our panel is, what did you do before your current job and why did you decide to change your job or career? So I'm going to start with Courtney, if that's okay with you, Courtney. So
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah, sure. So prior to my transition, which was just about 2 months ago, I've been in my new role for about 2 months now. I was a labor and employment attorney for about 6 years, and I've kind of had a couple of transitions. I practiced on one side of the bar, plaintiff side, for 5 years, and then spent about a year management side representing employers and organizations. And why did I decide to transition? I think really I knew for a while that I didn't want to continue practicing in the traditional sense. I didn't love being in the law firm setting, but I wanted to figure out a way to try and still use the skills that I had developed over those 6 years and some experience prior to that, and have really just a better work-life balance. And like you said in your intro, stop being so busy all the time. So that's my story.
Yeah, that is something a lot of us are hoping to create a better work and life balance. Good. Thank you for sharing that. And can we go to Jackie next?
Sure. Courtney, that phrase, I knew I didn't want to practice. I hit that after 1L. So my brief stint in Pennsylvania for law school was very brief. I was working at the Financial Times in advertising sales. After law school, I was always in ad sales. And I just had this feeling that I wanted to work on a bigger scale and at a higher level of business. But I didn't know what that looked like. So that's a huge thanks to ALV. And I know we'll talk about it more. But that was mainly sort of the idea that I had when I sought out ALV.
Thank you, Jackie. By the way, in case we have audience who just entered today's webinar, we are asking our panelists our very first question: what did you do before your current job, and why did you decide to change your job or career? So now we're going to ask the same question to Alex.
Sure. So I also changed about 2 months ago. So I'm only 2 months into my current job. But before that, I was a visual editor at the Wall Street Journal. And I have nothing but the highest praise for like the content that the Wall Street Journal like puts out. It's a really, really good newspaper. The task of putting out that really, really good newspaper was really killing me. And so, like we've said here, kind of, I was seeking a better work-life balance, or solutions to manage what I was doing every day better. And that's kind of what the coach helped me kind of sort through.
Good. Thank you. And Zend?
Yeah, so previous to my current position, I was working in a commercial real estate services firm, and I was feeling very tied into I was feeling very like restricted in what I can do and what I could accomplish. And I also realized that my values no longer really aligned with the company. And I was really looking for more of a purpose-driven, mission-driven company. And that's why I looked for Ama La Vida and wanted to start transitioning.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. So what I'm hearing so far, mostly it's about work-life balance and having a purpose. Does that sound right? Good. So my second question to everyone is, what was challenging about the transition? I mean, that could be several things. It could be an actual challenge you have to overcome, or maybe something that just really bothered you mentally. So let's think about that. And is it okay if I ask Jackie first on this question?
Yes, sorry, between the monitors, I lost my mouse.
That's okay.
Always a work from home thing. I think one of the big things for me was I was at my last job 4 years, and part of that was the pandemic, afraid to make a leap during that timing. But my boss was very good at moving the goalpost. So I kind of felt like, okay, I'm doing more. And then it got to a point where, my role had completely changed, but nothing reflected that externally. And that's not always the most important thing, but it started to be something that, made me feel a little bit like, okay, I need some guidance in this, because I've had 4 years to kind of figure this out. And I'm not sort of hitting it. But I knew too that I had sort of a barrier to confidence. I thought, I've always done this exact type of media sales. So what does that look like if I go and knock on someone else's door and say, let me sell something different, let me sell something bigger? And that was something that was important to me.
So that confidence piece, it was probably the biggest challenge.
Definitely. But quick shout out to my coach, Audrey. She really helped me with that. So
yeah,
very grateful to her.
Good. Thank you, Jackie.
Sure.
All right, can we move on to Alex?
Sure. What I wrestled with a lot, I think, was making sure that I was confident in the decision to leave my job, because like I said earlier, like I was working on really great projects and really good journalism. And so I didn't want to take all of that for granted and make a decision that I would regret. But what I also worked with Audrey helped me with was helping me like really think through kind of the things that I wanted and the lifestyle that I wanted to build. And I think that helped a lot, because when it came time to like tell my boss I wanted to leave, like I felt very secure that I had done the work to have that conversation.
So it sounds like confidence and clarity were the two things that probably felt more challenging at the time, and you just needed some help to sort that through. Okay, good. All right, Zend.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with clarity. I actually started working with Sherry about a year before I transitioned into my current job. And I was actually forced into finding a new position due to COVID cutbacks. My team was actually dissolved. So, but because I had been working with Sherry for so long, I felt incredibly confident. I think when I first started, I said, you know, I want to climb the career ladder. And then working with her, I was able to identify, actually, I need that purpose again. I need that mission driven. So we ended up, you know, being able to prepare me really well for that situation. So I think the challenge was clarity at the beginning.
Good. Thank you. And Courtney?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. A lot of the things that everyone has already said really resonate with me. I think I had a couple of challenges, as we probably all had more than one challenge. But for me, one of the things that I mentioned in my kind of intro was that I had just made a transition. So I had worked for 5 years in one place, and it was really hard for me to leave that first job. It was very aligned with like my personal beliefs. It was very mission oriented. And I made sort of a big switch going from practicing on one side of the bar to switching to another side. And then I made that jump and it wasn't right. And I could tell that within the first couple of months of being there. And so there was a lot of, I was really tenuous about doing it again. I knew that I wanted to leave. And I knew that I needed to make the first shift from my first job to my second job in order to get me to like where I really wanted to be, which is where I am now. But that interim step wasn't exactly what I expected. And I didn't expect to transition so quickly. So I think the piece about clarity really resonated with me, because I was just really afraid that I was going to make another wrong decision and then have to move again. And also really trying to figure out how I was going to like frame that story, frame that move when I was talking to employers. Like, why were you only at this place for a short period of time? And all of that was in my head as I was thinking about moving. So those were kind of the biggest pieces for me.
That is so interesting. So Courtney, if you don't mind me asking a little bit more, I'm curious. So it sounds like you went into something, but the result was kind of unexpected. So that felt like a wrong decision. But of course, there was a lot of things going on in your head. How can I change job again? I just got here. How do I explain myself? So, but I'm wondering, if we call that a wrong decision, what was the lesson from moving to this particular position that felt wrong, but then it also sounds like helped you gain confidence?
It wasn't a wrong decision. It was a wrong fit. I think it was the right decision, and I'm glad that I made the move. I think just I didn't mesh well with kind of the culture and the pace of the place that I went to. Wonderful, fabulous professionals who did amazing and continue to do amazing work. The pace was so much more than I really was expecting and prepared for. But it really helped me to start having those conversations, because I hadn't moved in 5 years. This was my first job after law school. I had stayed in the same place for 5 years. I hadn't had to interview. And it did give me kind of the exposure that I needed to be able to move into the role that I'm in now. And I don't think that I would have been able to make the move if I hadn't made the current move, if I hadn't made the prior move, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. So sometimes that imperfect experience is actually what we need to grow and to move on to the better and bigger things.
Absolutely. You grow from a little bit of discomfort, I think.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. Thank you. All right. So my next question is, what what did you try on your own before coaching? And what made you sign up for coaching? So I'm curious if you actually try something on your own before you seek help. So can we start with Alex on this one?
I mean, I would say that like your whole lives, you've been deciding jobs and applying for jobs and interviewing. But I feel like, I don't know, I wanted to like treat this like almost anything else. Like I think I have learned as you get a little bit older, like it's important to ask for help. So you're going to have a better workout if you have a coach, or you're going to, you know, sometimes we all need therapy and that helps you think through things. And so I thought, why wouldn't we apply that same kind of thinking to this? Because I've done the same thing every time. And usually about 3 years into a job, I'm burned out and upset. And the common denominator in that is me, right? Like I'm the one who keeps making those choices. And so what I really wanted was I wanted the coach to help me, again, that idea of clarity, but like help me make a decision about my next job with a lot of intention, because I would really love to get to that 3-year mark and be like, this is great. I would like to stay. That would be a nice change of pace. And so that's why I pursued coaching, because I was like, I've never tried this. We should try it, period.
So Alex, what I'm hearing is you have that self-awareness. I know I always do the same thing, right? We repeat the same pattern. And so instead of doing that this time, I can ask for help, try something different. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Yeah. And I was going to say that I wasn't sure, like, as I was doing it, like how much was helping. And then when the moment came to make a decision about the job and like actually conduct that transition, that's when all the work made sense. But then also Audrey was there like every step of the way to like help support and push me where I needed a push. And so that experience made me 100% like, this is such a great decision.
Yeah. Well, great job, Coach Audrey, if she's watching the recording. All right. So next, can we have Zen to talk about what did you try before coaching and what made you sign up for coaching?
Yeah. So Alex, everything you just said resonated with me, because what I tried was going above and beyond 150% of the time, getting burnt out, never getting recognized, and just really feeling stuck in a rut. Because I was doing all of the right things. I thought it was me being the denominator there. I looked for coaching because I was getting to the point where I was unhappy with like not only my life, because work was such a central part of it, but I was also really unhappy with like how work affected my personal life as well, because I'm going above and beyond. I'm constantly trying to reach higher and higher, burning myself out, not realizing that I was constantly skipping dinner with my partner or, you know, sacrificing so much. So once I got to that point, that low point, that's when I started looking for coaching. And it changed my life entirely, and not just my work life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And can we go to Courtney?
Yeah, sure. So it's just, I feel like a lot of the same stuff, but before I worked with recruiters, which I think the interesting difference, and I've worked a little bit with a recruiter, kind of this transition as well, but I think the biggest difference between coaching and recruiting is the recruiters are like trying to fit the right person to the job description, and not necessarily. I had a wonderful recruiter. I still talk with her, even though she didn't help me with this current job. But it's more about like, what does the job need, and less about what are you really looking for, and exploring the things that are kind of important to you that might mean the difference in this feeling like a place where you can stay beyond that 3-year mark and make it a like longer, a home or a longer tenure role. And that's really what coaching felt like to me. It was more focused on what am I looking for holistically. Betsy is my coach, and she's not a career coach. She's a life coach. And so similar to Zand, I was like, I'm over everything. Like, this is terrible. I'm not doing any of the things that I'm enjoying in life, and work is taking up all of my time. How do I focus on doing the things that are important to me and highlighting those and putting them in the forefront? And part of that was work. And she helped me kind of figure out how to work through those things, but also just focus on like, what is important to me and how can I make space for those things in my life. and not just make the job like the biggest part of my life. So that I tried recruiting before, and it was great, but it didn't have the same impact, I think, as having someone who was focused on me specifically.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. And Jackie?
Yeah, I think, and so much of this resonates with me. I think having been in that last job before, I was starting to feel the same, like burnout is probably the right term. I think too, to touch on like the personal life, I think I stayed in a relationship I shouldn't have because, all I wanted to do when I came home was watch TV and not really be confrontational and not try to, investigate whether this was the relationship for me. So I hit that point, and the problem with hitting that point was that I wasn't applying anywhere. I wasn't networking. I wasn't sending out resumes. Like I somehow just couldn't get myself to do it. And I was like, why is this something that I know I want, and yet I can't get myself to action on that? I had a recruiter who's placed me at my last job who did an executive coaching service. So my first thought was, I don't know if I'm high enough in my career to do that. I don't know if I can afford it. I had reached out to her actually twice and said, hey, do you have things for people at my level? Could we talk about like a couple of sessions? And she never got back to me, which was funny because we had talked so much. But I think, every no is like a redirection. And so I think it was New Year's Day. I just started Googling. I'm a big Google Photos and like review person. I believe anything above a 4.5 star is wonderful. And ALV, I think, had 5 stars on Google and had the ability to sign right up and get matched. So Justice helped me with that. And it was just the ability to press that button, beginning of the year and say, I'm going to have this meeting and I'm going to see what's possible. And then, having the transparency and pricing and everything. So that's how I kind of came to it.
Good. Thank you, Jackie. Sure. All right, so this next question, I'll let you volunteer. So my question is, what did you work on with your coach? And feel free to talk about what you're comfortable talking about. And it's okay if you don't want to disclose certain things. And I'm really curious about what was the expected outcome versus the actual results. So again, what did you work on with your coach? What was the expected outcome versus the actual results? So anyone wants to volunteer? All you have to do is just unmute.
I think we were all waiting for each other to unmute. I'll go first. I like to think of it more like, what have we not worked on? Sherry has definitely helped me with so many different aspects of my life, even though we started out as more of a career pathway. I think the most impactful thing that we tried for my career was building out my online presence. So specifically my LinkedIn. I really thought, okay, I'll work with a career coach. They'll look at my resume and give me some tips. But it was so much more than that. It was really how I present myself completely online. And the most impactful thing, I think, has been reframing the idea of what work is for me. Like I said, I was a chronic overachiever, still am recovering. But I let work dominate everything. So Sherry really taught me how to balance, and I'm much happier for it.
Good. Thank you. So may I assume that the expected outcome and actual results actually match?
Yeah, but it was so much more than that. Sherry went above and beyond for me because it was way more than I thought it would be. It would be, I thought it was originally going to be just a resume review and maybe interviewing tips and things like that. But it really impacted my life entirely because she showed me how to balance things. So the expected outcome was met and then more.
Good, good. By the way, I just noticed that Sherry and Audrey are both in the audience today. So thank you, coaches, for being here. And thank you, Zen, for sharing. Anyone else wants to go?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Sure.
So Betsy and I we talked a lot about food and cooking, and that's one on my slide. I had this still have in my mind that I'm going to become a chef or like something in the food realm. It has nothing to do with what I currently do now, but I love it. That's like just my outside joy and passion. And we talked a lot about that and how I could make that a bigger part of my life, my day-to-day life, how it could become more than just a hobby. And so in an interesting way, like I took the first step to get into coaching because I knew I needed to like have someone help me through the career process and the transition process. But we really took a step back and really talked a lot about like, what is it that you enjoy? What are the things that you really like in life outside of work? And how do you make those bigger pieces of your life? And so we focused on like ways for me to potentially transition into that at some point, because in my mind, it was like, you're a lawyer. What are you going to just like quit your job and become a chef? Like you can't make such an abrupt change. And what she showed me was really how to take like small bites at that. Like what are little steps that you can take in the interim? And I think by taking away from the stress of figuring out what am I going to do next, it let me kind of relax and focus on opportunities as they were coming in and kind of weed out things that would give me the space to focus on the thing that I'm passionate about, which is cooking. Food. So
I love that, Courtney. Actually, that reminds me, I do see a lot of us have this thinking that it's let's go big or go home, go all out or don't do it. Right. So, but then when we're in that mentality, it's hard not to get overwhelmed. So I want to make sure that we bring this message out to remind everyone that it's okay to take one small step at a time, small bites. I like that. Just take a little bit at a time to get to where you want to be.
I did not notice the pun, by the way. I didn't.
Yeah, you saw that in the chat, huh? Okay, all right. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And also, jump in if you want to answer this one. What did you learn about yourself through this career change? And what is something you're still working on? And as always, you disclose what you're comfortable disclosing and share what you like.
I wanted to jump in. It actually maybe bridges our last conversation a little bit in this one, in the sense that I think that's such a part of the ALV method. When you come in, you answer all the surveys and you start thinking about like, what is it that I actually care about? There's something about connecting what you're really passionate about to your career that like gives it just a zest, and how do I bring that in and what does that look like? So I think that is something I learned about myself because it was so easy to view my work self as different from my personal, that's completely different. But really the things I want to talk about day in and day out, they should maybe go through some of my client conversations and maybe we could be talking about things that matter to me and how that impacts the deepening of my client relationships. So I think that was a big part and a big part of working with ALV specifically.
Yeah. Is there something you're still working on, Jackie? On yourself, that is.
Oh God, everything. What am I still working on? For sure. So right now, having moved to TED Talks, I'll be going to my first event with them tomorrow, and I'll be hopefully going to Vancouver for Big TED in April of next year. I think, meeting these people at a higher level of business and feeling like I deserve a seat at the table or, deserve to speak to these people. Actually, it's something that very early in my career, I had just started, I was at a media company, I was at CBS News. And I, as one of the newer people, would sit on the fringes of the conference room. Anytime we had a big meeting, I would grab like a chair, off to the side. And finally, my boss pulled me aside and she said, Jackie, you have to sit at the table. No one's going to invite you. She said, next time when you come to the meeting, no matter how uncomfortable you feel, just pull up a chair and sit there. So it's something I still work on, but I have the intention to keep doing it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Actually, that was a really good advice from is it a current boss or ex-boss?
Former boss. We're still
former
Instagram
boss.
So
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Can we have one more? Yes, Alex.
Actually, what I was going to say was very helpful. And I think actually Jackie is hinting at some of this. Sometimes journalism can be this like super harsh culture, right? I love it. I love what we do. But there is this, like deadline is king and everything is busy and they're very, it's just harsh. And what was really helpful was actually that Audrey wasn't a journalist, although she had clearly other media clients. Jackie and I have exchanged emails because Audrey put us in touch. But I needed someone from an outside world to kind of listen to what I was saying and be able to say, sometimes that's crazy, don't do that, or that's not a normal way to think, because you internalize the cultures that you live in, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes those cultures are not always the most positive spaces. And so I think one of the things that was really helpful was having that kind of outside perspective, and then teaching me like, no, you can demand this, you can ask for this, or stuff, and that small bites thing. Like one of the things that Jackie pushed me, that Audrey pushed me to do was apply to a adjunct teaching position. And so like now I teach once a week, and that gives me a lot of joy because I talked about the joy of like teaching people journalism and sharing that. And so even though maybe my day job was really stressful, there was this other way to have joy. And then we changed jobs and stuff, and that was great. But that was like a small step to help me find more joy.
Yeah. What is something you're still working on?
Well, similarly, all the things. One of the things that Audrey had me do was a lot of like journaling and like diaries of like things that happen every day. And we should like do this in all of our lives, right? So I'm trying to like write about my current job and like other parts of my life, just so that I have that record, because otherwise like the internet has fried our brains and I remember nothing. So that I think is a really helpful tool.
Great point, Alex. I love that. I think journaling is so helpful. So what you're talking about is continue to reflect, right? Reflect on your day, reflect on your life, and really just creating the best life for you, because that's what's important. Yeah, good. All right, so for this next question, I would like everybody to jump in. So what would be your advice for other aspiring career transitioners? How should they approach career transitions? Let's say, it's not an easy thing, right? It's not just find a job, apply, and then you go work at this new place. There's just so many things are involved in this process. And it's hard not to get overwhelmed, or sometimes you don't even do it because it's too scary. What would be your advice for our audience today, if that's what they're experiencing? How about we start with Zen this time? Is that okay, Zen? Do you feel ready?
Yeah, I was about to unmute.
Okay.
My biggest piece of advice is to establish a reliable support system for you to be able to do this work, because it's definitely hard to do, but it's definitely easier to do when you have a support system. I think that's what ALV was for me, being able to transition into a career that makes me truly happy and work towards a mission that impacts people's lives positively. So creating that and looking at who's going to be supporting you and who's not, and then setting aside time to do the work yourself is the most important. Telling yourself that you deserve something more, and then setting aside that time for yourself.
Good. Good. So I'm hearing establish a reliable support system, set time to do the work, and mindset, right? You know that you deserve more, and you have to believe in that. A lot of times we have clients who really just put themselves last. They're very good at helping other people succeed, but they're not good at helping themselves. So that mindset is really important. Okay, can we go to Courtney if you're ready?
Yeah, sure. A couple of things. Kind of to Zan's point, but maybe in a different way. Leverage all of your resources. Like, have a recruiter, have a coach, talk to the people in your networks. Like, every person is a potential opportunity to help you figure out like where the next big thing is going to be. I have friends right now who are in career transitions, like going from being a teacher to going corporate, and like just talking through, having sounding boards to try and help you figure out like what makes sense, what am I going to be interested in, and know your story, like be able to tell your story and frame like why you're making the change. I was in, I feel like, a constant career transition for about a year because I was interviewing, then I got the job, and then I was interviewing again. And it like drove home to me even more like what it is that I wanted to do and why I was making the changes that I was going to make. So really be able to talk about your story. And I think be able to have the hard conversations and ask for the things that you want, because I can tell you, I almost lost out on a few different like perks or benefits because I didn't want to ask for them. And I had people around me who were like, no, that is not acceptable for you to leave that on the table. You need to ask for it, which I think a lot of us can struggle with. And I did in a couple of instances, and it ended up resulting in changes for other people that I worked with as well. So like, know your non-negotiables and like have those front and center so that you can decide whether or not the move is right for you. And if not, you might have to consider whether you're going to walk away.
So what I'm hearing is leverage your resources, know your story, also know your why. Why are you applying for this job? Does it make sense for the lifestyle you want, right? You really want to think about what you want, not just, am I matching the job description? And ask for what you deserve. That's a big one. That leads back to what Zen said earlier. And also know your non-negotiables. Good. I love that. Solid advice. All right, moving on to Jackie.
Yeah, I think so I think it's sort of a bit, my advice is, find out what works for you to get you to take the next step. I had this conversation with myself where I was at my brand for 4 years. It was a heritage brand. I still am a subscriber. If you could see my coffee table, you would see like a lot of newspapers on there. It's important to me and it's what I wanted to align with, but I had to kind of frame it up for myself. And even if it was kind of like a fake scenario, I had to frame it up for myself from a money standpoint. So I had to say, okay, you've been here 4 years. You've had a very similar salary. You get reevaluated, once a year for that little bump at the end, or I can push my own sales. I can try to work overtime and like increase my commission. I said, okay, what if I asked my company for $5,000 for the next 5 years consistently? I'm like, what does that look like? Because say that's the jump I want to make is 25K. I'm like, well, the problem with that is they're not going to give it to me every year. And I'm going to become a nuisance. They're going to be knowing that I'm kind of itching. I was like, I just, for me, I don't see that going in the direction I need it to go in. And I sort of also being a salesperson and being revenue driven, like that is the story I had to tell myself to decide that I wanted to make the leap, because otherwise there were always more projects I could get pulled onto. There were always more clients I could approach. Like there was ways to generate. And that is actually a tie into the waitressing. Like there's never a point to sit down and like have a coffee. You could be wiping a table, you could be like steaming a glass, you can be putting away cutlery, like, there's a whole thing to it. So I think for me, that was something that I needed to talk to myself about in order to say, I'm gonna really put my focus here and do this. So that would be my advice. Like figure out what your narrative as far as like that will push you to make that change, because it is scary. It's hard to leave your friends and it's hard to get like unattached to your manager and all that.
You're absolutely right. It's so interesting how some of us really don't like to be in a certain work environment. It's so uncomfortable, yet we get so uncomfortable to this uncomfortable place, and then we're stuck. And I love, Jackie, that you're kind of coaching yourself a little bit there. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what will make me take that next step, right? Figure out that narratives and tell myself so I can actually do it. So you are coaching yourself a little bit there. Great job. All right. So can we have Alex?
Sure. Although I will be honest, I feel like Courtney said all the ones I was going to say, and she said them better than I could. But maybe that you're worth the investment, if that makes sense. So like that was something that I thought at the beginning of this, where I was like, well, yeah, this is money that I could be spending in other ways, but also this is so much of our lives and it's worth that. And then I would also say, it's often like just to do the work, right? Like, even though it like doesn't necessarily like make sense in that day, right? In the same way that when you lift a weight, you're like, well, my abs don't look better tomorrow, but in like 6 months they will. And so I think you have to have that long view as well.
Oh, I love the analogy. Yes. Do the work, because you know it takes time to have a six pack if that's what you want. But you have to start today, right? Start today, do the work, you'll get there. If you can stay consistent and really invest in yourself, whether that's money or time, because you are worth the investment. Thank you for the wisdom. All right. Okay, so these are the questions I have for today. I'm going to turn on my slides again, so bear with me. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to assume you can see my screen unless someone unmutes and tells me otherwise. Okay, so I have a quote for everyone. Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit at home and think about it. Go out and get busy. This is a quote from Dale Carnegie. I think this is, it says so much about job transition, right? I know there's fear. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. But if you just sit there and do nothing, then nothing's going to happen. And of course, I want to treat this like a coaching session. What is the action item for today? The action item for everyone today is, what can you do if you're thinking about career transitions? What can you do today? Maybe just one thing that will move you forward. So I want you to think about it. This could also be just making that decision, or actually do something to kick off this job search process. And takeaway, if you only remember one thing today, this is what I want you to remember. You can do this. It takes the right mindset and commitment. Coaching can help you get to where you want to be if you are willing to stay curious, keep an open mind, and commit to yourself. The most important thing is that commitment to yourself. And I think our panel said it all. And thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to move on to this next slide. Besides saying thank you, I'm going to turn this over to Justice. I want to remind our audience, Q&A is coming. So get ready, maybe think about what questions you want to ask. And while we give you a moment to think about the questions, Justice, please take it over.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And thank you once again to all the panelists for being here. Additionally, thank you for the coaches that are here in the audience that helped, get everybody to this point. It's really just a testament to your hard work, and we appreciate everyone. And thank you to the panelists for taking the time out today. That being said, if you want to continue a question or a conversation further and want to just get the ball rolling on your own coaching journey, I'm once again going to drop my consult link, as well as the link to our website, where you can look up all the other coaches that we have on our site to kind of see what we have available for you. Additionally, I'm dropping the link to our YouTube page where you can see previously recorded webinars, as well as our Eventbrite, where you can see the upcoming webinars that we do have planned coming through. But remember that anyone coming to us from a webinar does get their first session free. And so make sure you articulate that in your form, and we'd be more than happy to take this conversation further. With that being said, we can turn this to the question and answer section. I know someone, Cynthia, has pinged me that she does have a question. So while we start this part of it, anyone else that has any other questions that they're thinking about, feel free to raise your hand or write them in the chat, and then we can kind of go from there. But Cynthia, if you would like to come off of mute and ask your question.
Awesome. Thank you, Justice. And thank you to all the panelists today for sharing a bit about your own experiences and some advice for all of us in transition. I have a question that's kind of about where I am in my own challenges. So I think Courtney spoke a little bit to it, I think, with her experiences, but essentially I feel like I've transitioned a bit too much and too early in 3 different industries. One was, I was like in 1 year for law, and then 2 years for teaching. And then the last one was in digital marketing, which was just a very toxic environment. So I had to leave in about 6 months. So I just feel like I've never really set roots for like deep, extensive connections and skills. And I feel like that's preventing me three things. One is like getting over the hump of securing an interview to begin with. Secondly, having the experiences and connections in actually what I want to do. And then thirdly, it also gives me a bit of lack of confidence to succeed once I do get the interview. And I think Courtney and Peggy and some other people were helpful in kind of addressing that confidence piece, but I'm still kind of thinking through the first two, like the hump of securing an interview and then just getting the connections and experiences and what I'm actually interested in. So if anyone has any thoughts, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Cynthia, is the concern here that you transitioned too much and too quickly, and that kind of took away the confidence?
I think the concern is that I transitioned too much and too fast. So I didn't develop like deep relationships and connections to rely on, and like skills that I can really confidently say, like, I have these skills. And it kind of puts me, because I have a JD, so it kind of puts me in this position where I feel like too overqualified for some things and then like too not qualified because I don't actually have experience in the things that I'm trying to get.
So before I say anything, panelists, anybody wants to jump in? Zen?
I wanted to jump in. I mean,
Sure.
as women, a lot of the time we do talk down the skills that we do have and that might be what you're doing at this point, just because you have skills that you got from even 6 months, like existing a week in a place, you'll learn something. So maybe you're focusing too much on the depth rather than the breadth. Like I know I started out in dog grooming and I learned how to handle customers from that. And I used that in my resume when I first started, like trying to get more of a customer service position and then move on into more digital marketing stuff. So that was the one thing I just wanted to say, is that like as women, a lot of the times we don't believe that we have these skills and we talk it down because we think, oh, there's always someone better than me out there. So just be aware of that in accurately representing your skills.
I think to jump in here for you, Cynthia, I think there's two things. I think one is you need a run-on sentence that you really believe that ties together your past experiences. Feel free to drop the marketing one from that if you want and call that like a post-COVID, well, we're still in COVID, but like a COVID contract job, whatever makes you feel more confident about that. But take the teaching and take the law and tie together why you liked them. Try to do it with a feeling. So try to say, what I was trying to achieve in those past experiences was a feeling or a skill. I have done this and worked for hours on one of these sentences so that I could believe it for an interview. But I seriously think there is synergy to all of that, and you are the binding between all of that. So you need to redirect yourself and redirect your story. But I am a salesperson storyteller, but I think that's where you need to start, is like, your DNA. Because you deserve to be really confident. Those are really amazing professions and places to be. And also, you can totally start from scratch wherever. So do not feel like whatever I learned in an office between the ages of 22 to 28 are at all in competition to your experience. So put that aside. It's not the case, and you'll be able to do all the on-the-job training once you're there.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think they answered it so well. Cynthia, what do you think?
Oh, I was just going to say that I feel like both of those answers were so informative, like both informative and empowering. So I really appreciate that. And also really helps to reframe, because I think someone had mentioned earlier that like we often get, I think Alex was saying like the cultures that we're in and we live in often kind of make us think certain things and hold on to these beliefs that aren't very helpful or are maladaptive. So yeah, that was really empowering and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We do have one more question. There was a hand that was raised by Paige. Paige, if you want to come off of mute and ask a question, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Peggy, and all the panelists. I really learned a lot. Here's my situation. So right around COVID, I decided to career pivot And my background has been in hospitality, marketing, and design. And so I feel like those are all great transferable skills to the next big job. However, here's the big however, I even obtained 2 certification in business and data analysis, analyst roles, or I'm sorry, 2 certification in business data analysis. And I can't seem to get an interview. And this has been since March. I did take a marketing coordinator position into interim for financial reasons. But now it seems like my resume might be showing that I'm not on one track, that I'm all over the place, if that makes any sense. So I know there are a lot of jobs out there, but yet when I apply, I get the automatic no's or the ghosting, right? I'm sure everybody here can relate to that. And I'm even networking like crazy. I'm signing up to events like these just to hear from other folks. So I'm wondering what other options do I have, because being out of work since March is a very long time in my opinion. And I know I have the skill set. I just need somebody to give me that shot. My resume is not going to look ideal to them because, for example, I don't have work experience in Excel. I learned it, right, in courses, but not in past jobs. So I can't articulate that I have Excel experience except listing it on my technical skills portion of my resume. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'd love to get some ideas and advice from everyone here. Thank you.
Panel, anybody wants to jump in?
I think one thing that I would say is that it sometimes can take a really, really long time, like much longer than you really want it to. I know I went through a period of time where I was like applying to everything, and I would go for months without getting, and that was using recruiters, and I would go for months without getting any responses. And I had people like professionally look at my resume and kind of cater it to the jobs that I was applying for. And I wasn't getting callbacks, or I would go on an interview and, like you said, the ghosting, like I wouldn't hear anything back. It was just like radio silence, which is a little easier to stomach when you're currently employed. Like when you have a job, you can kind of weather that a little bit more. So I understand it's a slightly different experience. I think one thing you mentioned, like signing up and going to different events like this, but also it's good to build up your network and to like meet people in events like this. But who are the people that maybe exist already in your circle or in your life who may be able to really speak to your skills and your experience, and who may be able to put you in front of someone? Because sometimes it can be hard. I think you can definitely make connections in spaces where you're kind of coming into the room and meeting people for the first time. But if there are people you know that you can really talk to about opportunities that are available, that might be a really good resource to start going to. But don't be discouraged that it's taking time. Like it's really, it's terrible that it takes so much time sometimes, but like, do not be discouraged about that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that answer, Courtney. And thank you for the question, Paige. We are at the top of the hour. So one more time, I did want to give a huge thank you to everyone for joining us today, especially our panelists and Peggy for facilitating this all. Anyone have any final thoughts that they want to say?
Panel, any last words, parting words?
I did just want to say to Paige, and this is something that can happen kind of through your ALV conversation too, but there is a world in which you can build your experience around Excel by, posting like a daily tip to your LinkedIn or a weekly tip. I think there's ways to really show that you have that experience, certificates online. So I would go a little more sideways of what you're thinking, like go sideways of the traditional and build your brand.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, well, with all of that being said, thank you everyone for spending their time here with us today. And then you can look for this recording being sent out tomorrow. Peggy, you want to end it off for us?
Yes, I want to say thank you, everyone. I saw in the chat, sorry that I couldn't get to it earlier. I know some of you came from far and some of you, this is your first time. Thank you so much. And please come back. Please know that we are here to help you. You can schedule a primer and get a free consultation to maybe get some questions answered first. And maybe that will be helpful. So we're here for you. We're doing our best to serve you. And thank you to Sand, Courtney, Jackie, Alex. You're brilliant. Thank you so much for being here.
Everyone have a lovely day and I hope to see you in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.